What's up guys, Nathan here, and today I want to talk about the one thing that only a small percentage of poker pros know about. This is something that I have talked about a little bit in these videos before, but I really wanted to dive into it in more detail today. So guys, really what I'm talking about here is that the handful of real pros in this game, people who have been in the trenches, who understand what it takes to win in this game, what do they all understand? They all understand that staying power is the one thing that matters the most. I'll never forget, I think it was the 2008 NBC Heads Up Championship, and a young Tom Dwan at that point placed a bad beat on Mr. Phil Hellmuth. Tom Dwan had the pocket tens, and Phil Hellmuth, I believe, had aces. It was all in pre-flop. It was a totally standard play, but Phil Hellmuth ended up berating the young Tom Dwan at that point and basically saying to him, kid, you don't, I'm paraphrasing here, kid, you don't know what's going on in this game. I think he told him he doesn't even know how to spell poker. We'll see if you're still even around in 5, 10, 20 years. And you know, the funny thing is that Tom Dwan is still around these days, one of the best poker players in the world, and Phil Hellmuth is still around these days as well. And while it's a classic Phil Hellmuth rant, and you know, everyone has their opinions on that, the reason I bring it up is because what he said is actually true. This is the real test of a true poker pro. It's somebody who stands the test of time. Guys, we see so many flash in the pan players these days who win a tournament, who, you know, go on a hot run in the cash games for a couple weeks and they think they're on top of the world. And, you know, everybody's talking about them. They're the new, you know, phenom in poker. And then a year or two later, you can't even find these people. They've literally dropped off the face of the planet. I've seen so many people come and go. They had a hot streak. They were the talk of the poker world. And then all of a sudden, they're nowhere to be found. And it's probably because they hit the big downswing, the big adversity that will strike every poker player at some point, the soul-crushing downswing, and you know, they probably couldn't deal with it. The other reason why a lot of people do not stand the test of time in this game is because they don't reinvent themselves. They do not continue to improve their skills. The amount of ego in this game of poker is kind of staggering to me at sometimes. You can see it all over the internet. Everybody thinks they know everything about this game. There's not a whole lot of humble poker players out there. And the problem with that is that the game of poker is always changing. Even if you were theoretically had climbed the top of the poker knowledge mountain right now, the game is always changing. The best players in the world are always creating counter strategies to whatever is the dominant, you know, quote unquote standard strategy today, so that the game is always changing. So if you are not evolving your game with it, and a lot of people just sort of lean on whatever the today's fad is for this specific strategy for raising, or this certain, you got to use this program or something, and they don't understand, guys, that I've seen the cycle of programs and theories and strategies over 15 years in this game, and they're always changing. And the people that get stuck on one specific idea about how the game is supposed to be played, they're the people that wind up in poker's graveyard. They're the people that you look up on the internet 5 years later and they're nowhere to be found. Guys, the other thing you need to be doing is constantly evolving even what games you play in, what games you specialize in, because the other thing is that the game of poker, the environment is constantly changing as well. I mean, I remember back when I was starting in 2003, 2004, you know, online poker was totally different at that point. We had the Americans on Poker Stars, for example. There was none of all this regulation and stuff these days. There were no smartphones back then, so there was no poker on your app. The environment in live poker was completely different at that point, and quite frankly, it required a completely different strategy to beat those games, because people back then, let's just say, weren't quite as good at poker as they are today. Basically what I'm saying, guys, is that the game is always changing with technology as well. You know, a lot of people play poker on an app on their phone these days, and again, that requires a different skill set in terms of your game selection, and if you need an agent and stuff like that. And the best tournaments are always changing, where they're played, who can play, the structure, and so on. So guys, you need to be constantly evolving, constantly understanding where the easy money is, where the soft games are these days. Like I said earlier, I think the biggest reason why a lot of people don't stand the test of time in this game is because they eventually hit the soul-crushing downswing where they can't win for, weeks, months, and even in some cases years on end. And guys, there's no way that I can really sugarcoat it for you in this video. This is something that every poker player is going to have to face at some point. I often say, if you think you're running bad right now, give it some time. You probably ain't seeing nothing yet, because at a certain point, this game will challenge you mentally, physically, probably some other ways too, in more ways than you can possibly imagine. And that is where the real metal and heart of a poker player is made. Guys, it's not when you're on the top of the mountain and you're winning every single coin flip, you're hitting every single flush draw on the river, and you just banked a big tournament. Anybody can play well, guys, when they've got pocket aces and the other guy's always got pocket kings. Anybody can do it. I don't need to teach you any strategy on how to play when you got pocket aces and they got pocket kings. That's the easy part in poker, guys. It's when the shoe is on the other foot for a long period of time, when you're constantly feeling like you can't win a hand to save your life. And I'm not talking about just 1 or 2 sessions. I'm talking about, again, weeks, months, and even years. If you play this game long enough, you're going to encounter one of these downswings that is really going to test your even love for the game, if you even want to continue playing this game anymore. I've played over 10 million hands of poker, and I've talked about on my blog before how I've literally thrown in the towel on many, many occasions. By the way, I talk about my complete story a little bit more in my free poker cheat sheet. That'll be the top link in the description below if you want to know more. And also make sure you subscribe to the channel here so you never miss my new videos. But guys, the bottom line is you're going to face a level of adversity at some point in this game that you never thought was possible. And the real difference between a real poker pro and everybody else is their ability to keep putting one foot in front of the other, to keep using the correct strategy again and again and again, no matter what results they're getting currently, today at the table, next week at the table, next month. And if there's really anything that I could give you in terms of advice throughout my 15 plus years in this game, is that, guys, you just need to focus on the process. There's so many unknown factors in this game. There's so much noise at the table. Everyone's always got something to say about how you play and so on. You just have to tune all that stuff out, and you need to create a tunnel vision for playing your best poker, and of course always making sure that you're improving your game away from the poker tables. There's other stuff you can do I've talked about in these videos. I truly believe that your lifestyle is a huge factor as well in your long-term success in this game. That means regular exercise, optimized diet, optimized sleep schedule, but I'm not going to get into any of that in this video because I've talked about it in some others. Anyways, guys, I hope that this little short one was helpful in some way. Make sure you like and subscribe if you found it helpful. And once again, if you want to know my complete strategy for small and mid-stakes games, just grab a copy of my free poker cheat sheet. That'll be the top link in the description below. All right, guys, all the best at the poker tables. Thanks for watching. This has been Nathan Williams with BlackRain79.com.